This video presents the historical development of postmodernism in education together with the key thinkers and their respective contributions. Postmodernism in education arose in the mid to late 20th century as a critic of modernist confidence in reason, science, and objective truth. It challenges traditional schooling systems that promote uniformity and authority, advocating instead for critical questioning, deconstruction of dominant ideologies, and empowerment of marginalized voices. It also questioned the assumption that education could uncover one universal reality or convey a single narrative of knowledge. Instead, postmodernism emphasizes pluralism, cultural diversity, context, and the socially constructed nature of knowledge. Through postmodern thought, education becomes an arena for dialogue, multiple perspectives, and ongoing reinterpretation of meaning. Let's start with Ivan Illich, an Austrian philosopher, social critic, and educator, known for his radical critiques of modern institutions. His work emerged during the late 20th century in response to bureaucratic and standardized schooling systems that limited personal freedom and autonomy. Illich's deschooling society challenged the very idea that learning requires formal schooling. His radical critique helped broaden postmodern thought in education, from questioning knowledge to questioning institutions themselves. He argued that schools reproduce inequality and dependency by monopolizing learning. He proposed a society of learning webs, where individuals freely access educational resources and learn through networks, dialogue, and community interaction. For him, education should be decentralized, self-directed, and rooted in everyday life. He envisioned learners as autonomous agents who acquire knowledge through collaboration and experience rather than formal curricula or certification systems. Michel Foucault, a French philosopher and historian known for his work on power structures, discipline, and social institutions. His ideas arose amid post-war social critique, challenging traditional authority and universal claims of knowledge in education. Foucault revealed how institutions like schools, prisons, and hospitals serve as mechanisms of surveillance and control. His insights reshaped educational theory by exposing how systems of knowledge reinforce social hierarchies. Foucault proposed that knowledge and power are inseparable, and that truths are produced within the structures of authority rather than discovered independently. He urged critical awareness of how educational institutions define what counts as valid knowledge. For him, education should question its own disciplinary practices. Teachers and learners must engage in critical inquiry, recognizing and resisting the subtle forms of power embedded in curriculum, testing, and assessment. We have here Jean-François Lyotard, a French philosopher best known for his analysis of postmodern condition and knowledge structures. His work emerged in the late 20th century Western society when confidence in universal theories and grand educational narratives was declining. Lyotard's work legitimized postmodernism as a philosophical stance, shifting educational discourse from the pursuit of certainty to the celebration of difference and pluralism. He defined postmodernism as incredulity toward meta-narratives, rejecting any single story of truth or progress. Knowledge, he argued, is fragmented, contextual, and defined by language games rather than universal laws. For him, education should move away from imposing uniform curricula and instead cultivate diversity of thought and voice. Learners should engage in dialogue, exploring multiple worldviews and epistemologies. Jacques Derrida, a French philosopher and literary theorist known for developing deconstruction as a method for critical analysis. His ideas arose amid debates over language, meaning, and the authority of canonical texts influencing critical approaches in education. Derrida transformed how educators approach text and knowledge, fostering a mindset of questioning rather than acceptance. His method became a foundation for critical literacy and interpretive inquiry. He introduced deconstruction as a way of reading that exposes hidden assumptions, contradictions, and power relations within texts. Meaning, he argued, is fluid and contingent upon context. For him, education should teach students to interrogate and reinterpret texts, ideas, and cultural narratives. Teachers act as facilitators of inquiry, helping learners uncover the multiple meanings embedded in language and culture. Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educator and philosopher known for his work in literacy and emancipatory education. His work developed in contexts of political oppression and social inequity, challenging dominant narratives that maintained social hierarchies. Freire redefined education as a tool for social change and empowerment, linking critical consciousness to freedom from oppression. His ideas bridged modernist activism and postmodern pluralism. Freire viewed learning as a process of conscientization. It is on developing awareness of social realities and challenging oppressive systems. He rejected top-down, teacher-dominant education models. For him, education should be dialogical and participatory, where teachers and students co-create knowledge through reflection and action. The classroom becomes a space for liberation and transformative dialogue. Bell Hooks, an American author, feminist, and educator known for her work on critical pedagogy and intersectionality. Her ideas arose during the late 20th century in response to systemic inequalities and exclusion in traditional schooling and cultural institutions. Hooks infused postmodern thought with feminist and intersectional dimensions, emphasizing the personal as political. She redefined education as a space of empowerment, love, and social justice. She believed that education must engage both the mind and the heart, and that true learning occurs through empathy, dialogue, and recognition of interconnectedness of race, gender, and class. For her, education should be a liberatory act, rooted in care, critical awareness, and activism. Teachers should model authenticity, foster mutual respect, and empower students to challenge systems of domination. Jean Baudrillard, a French sociologist, philosopher, and cultural theorist known for his analysis of hyperreality and simulation. His work emerged amid the rise of mass media and technological culture, highlighting how reality and representation shape perception and education. Baudrillard exposed how digital culture blurs the line between reality and representation, influencing how students perceive truth and identity in the media-saturated age. He argued that in the postmodern world, signs and images replace direct experience, and that what we believe to be real is often a simulation. Knowledge, therefore, becomes mediated and unstable. For him, education must teach critical media literacy, enabling learners to discern and deconstruct mediated realities. Schools should prepare students to navigate a world where images, algorithms, and simulations shape understanding. The next one is Henry Giroux, an American-Canadian educational theorist known for advancing critical pedagogy and postmodern educational thought. His contributions arose during increasing market-driven education, neoliberal policies, and the need to challenge dominant ideologies in schools. Giroux advanced the view that education must confront cultural politics and ideology, making classrooms spaces of resistance and transformation. Giroux combined postmodern skepticism of universal truths with Freirian activism, arguing that knowledge is cultural, political, and historically situated. For him, education should promote cultural critique, media analysis, and democratic participation. Teachers act as transformative intellectuals who guide learners in reading the world as critically as they read the Word. Postmodernism continues to shape contemporary education through multiculturalism, critical pedagogy, and the decolonization of curricula. It inspires educators to question dominant narratives and include diverse perspectives, voices, and knowledges. In the digital age, postmodern thought informs critical media literacy, global education, and student empowerment in navigating complex and pluralistic societies. Postmodernism transformed education from a search for absolute truth into a dialogue of diverse meanings and perspectives. From Illich's deschooling vision to Foucault's critique of power, Lyotard's pluralism, Derrida's deconstruction, and Hooke's engaged pedagogy, postmodern thinkers redefined learning as an act of questioning and liberation. For them, education must resist conformity, expose hidden hierarchies, and celebrate difference. It reminds us that knowledge is never neutral, but always created, contested, and reimagined. The postmodern tradition reminds us that education is a living conversation, one that thrives on diversity, dialogue, and the courage to rethink what it means to know and to teach. This has been the historical development of postmodernism in education. For more helpful videos in related education courses, you may subscribe to this channel. Thank you in advance.